Hello, this is Robert Hooks, and welcome to the Urban Roundtable. There's a fascinating and thought-provoking play appearing at the new Kirk Douglas Theater in downtown Culver City. It's called Permanent Collection, and it's written by Thomas Gibbons, and it's being presented by the Center Theater Group in association with the Robey Theater Company and Greenway Arts Alliances. The play runs until February 12th. So I'd better not waste too much time before introducing one of the stars, who I might add is no stranger to the show, and who is also the producing artistic director of the Robey Theater Company. I'm speaking of the prolific and talented artist, Ben Guillory. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for all of that, too. Appreciate it.
Well, you are a veteran. You've been here before, and it was nice having you then with the Haitian Chronicles, and so nice to have you back for the Permanent Collection. Permanent Collection is, I want to talk a little bit about the genesis of this whole thing, how it started, and I think you had something to do with that.
A little bit. Thomas Gibbons, the playwright, he lives in Philadelphia, and we have a relationship going back to 1996 when I read some of his first work, some one-acts, and I wanted to produce them then because Thomas always has a social consciousness to his work without being heavy-handed about it. He doesn't bang you over the head with a message, doesn't give you answers. He simply poses questions and arguments and lets the audience walk away to draw their own conclusions. So that's what attracted me to his work back then. Then he wrote a play called B. Luther Hatchie, and in 1999 at the Tamarind Theater in Hollywood, we produced that with Anne Marie Johnson and Marty and several other actors, and it went very well.
I remember the play.
And so, again, saluting Thomas's work, that was the first in what has now become a trilogy. And Permanent Collection is the second in that trilogy. He's working on the third now. But he came to look at the play, and driving back to the airport afterwards, we talked about in the Barnes Foundation, the art collection, Impressionist art collection in Philadelphia came up. And there was a lot going on with that, as there still is a lot going on with that. The changing hands to Lincoln University and all of that. So I said, Tom, you know, that'd be a good subject for a play. And we had a couple of words about that. He went on to get on the plane, and he called me back and he said, I'm working on it.
Get out.
And he called me back and I said, I'm still working on it. And pretty soon he sent me a first draft, a draft. And Tom is really the resident director of the Intimate Theater in Philadelphia, so all his work is produced there. First it premieres there. And the rest, I guess you could say, is history. Because after that, there were 12 productions. I think there's been something like 19 productions last year of Permanent Collection.
Now you bring the play to Los Angeles, and you take it into your, basically your home here in Los Angeles,
right.
the Greenway Theatre.
It's important to say this about the Greenway too, as you mentioned, Robert, home. You know, we have a really wonderful relationship, co-production relationship with the Greenway. This will be the fourth play that we've co-produced with the Greenway, this production at the Kirk Douglas Theater under the auspices of the CTG. And I just feel it's just important to let everyone know that much of what we do, especially the Haitian Chronicles or Levy Lee Simon's play For the Love of Freedom, the first two installments of that about Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, would not have happened without the Greenway. And their support, their like-mindedness of socially conscious work, and now Permanent Collection. Pearson Blatz and Whitney Weston over there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how about the play and your relationship. How did CTG get this play and bring it into the Kirk? Talk a little bit about that.
Michael Ritchie, of course, now is the producing artistic director of the CTG. his first season. And I'm on a committee at CTG, the Diversity Action Committee, and I met Michael with having been on this committee. And at an intro for Michael to the diverse theater community here in Los Angeles, Michael made a statement. He said that he wanted to make the resources of the CTG available to the small theater community here in Los Angeles.
I read the statement.
Yeah, of course, and all of us, yes, because for years, of course, we had all hoped that we would have more access to a major regional theater company with the resources that the CTG has. And that has been available to us on occasion. And now, with Michael's statement, it was a statement. So, went up to Michael afterwards and said, well, Michael, we have a play coming up. I want you to come see it. And I really appreciate it. And, of course, Michael walks it like he talks it. Mm-hmm. He says things and they get done. So he came after and saw a student matinee of Permanent Collection. And about 5 minutes after the curtain went down, I'm outside saying, thank you for coming, because his family's on the East Coast and he commutes on weekends, so it's an ordeal for him to stay the weekend when his family is still back east and being relocated. So he made an extra effort to come and see this performance with 98 young people and himself on a Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. And I went out to meet him, and he says, I really like that play. And we talked about that. Do you have anything that you want to produce that is coming out of the Playwrights Lab, because we have a developmental arm that is the Playwrights Lab? And I said, there isn't anything right now that's jumping out at me, but what about this? And he said, okay, done deal. We'll fold you in to the 2006 season. And of course, being the skeptic that I am, and because of experience, as you well know, over the years, and there's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of talk, and then there's even more talk. Mm-hmm. And I said, you sure? Yeah? And he said, done deal. I said, and he looked, and he knew, and he said, done deal.
That's amazing.
And it's a done deal.
That is amazing. And
so here we are now. We were going to, at first it was scheduled for September. CTG, something happened with one of the productions. And so we got bumped up, and that's a good thing, because we're there earlier, and now we're open.
Well, it's a good thing. It's also good for us, because we have you here. We also have the director, Dwayne Perry, that I'm going to be talking to later on. But do us a favor, for the viewing audience, tell us a little bit about the play. Give us a summary of what the play's about.
Again, about what Tom writes about, and I feel it's just better stated. Who has the right? Who has the power? Who makes the choices? Who says what's going to happen and what's not going to happen? What's important, what's not important? This is something that is vital and a through line to all of Tom's plays. I can say that safely, I think. B. Luther Hatchie, the one act about the MOVE, the play about the MOVE organization in Philadelphia.
The tragic.
Yes, that incident, which is based on fact again. Here we have the Moores Foundation, Inter Sterling North, black, new director, wants to change things.
Character you play in the play.
And the conflict comes when a resident educational director poses obstacles to Sterling changing things and changing the policy that the original vision, the original creator of the Moores Foundation, his vision was put forth, which was not to change anything. Nothing changes, everything remains the same. Sterling sees African artifacts that are grand and important to him and to our heritage in storage, wants to bring them up. This crosses a line.
They're in the basement in storage.
In the basement, although Paul would say they're in storage.
Right.
But they're down there. He sees them, And on the walls of the Moores Foundations, there's 4 or 5 artifacts, and the rest is, of course, the grand masters of European, everybody.
The Impressionists, yes.
Impressionists, Gauguin, Van Gogh, Matisse, Renoir, and the rest. And he challenges that and wants to just bring up a few. And, of course, this goes against the grain of Paul, and there lies the conflict. And what ensues is the argument that covers a lot of philosophical ground and political ground as well. Civil rights and the racism, and the idea of art and how art is also used as a tool, as a device, as something that perpetuates a whole way of thinking about culture and about who is important and who we should look to as standards and models.
Your character wants to bring those African that African art, their statues, their artifacts. Yes. He wants to bring them up and put them in the main room. Yes. And Paul, your nemesis, he's not happy. He's not really a nemesis, but he's not happy, and so the conflict there. And what happens is, I saw the play the other night, but I'm not going to give anything away. I just want to have this dialogue with you as a star. What happens is that what we see is, I know I have a lot of friends who can say things that are racist and don't believe that they've said anything racist. Mm-hmm. I said, but wait a minute, you said it. So do you feel it, or is it just something that slipped out? These are people who are well-educated people who don't think that they have a racist bone in their body, but it happens. And it happens in this play several times. But then there's something else that happens in the play. There's a turnaround on your character that also speaks to
his own bias, and some people would interpret that as racist. We need a long program to talk about that.
We won't talk about it. We won't talk about that. But we won't talk about that.
How we're affected, you know, and how we see things because of all of that, all those years.
Right. You know, there was an article in the paper recently about white writers writing about black subjects, black themes.
That's Thomas.
Right. It's about Thomas, right.
Yeah. He wrote it.
He wrote the article, indeed. So he wrote that. Yeah. I wanted to get your feeling on that, because I have my feeling on it. My producer, Milton Brown, has his feelings that differ from mine. And I'm wondering what your take is on the white writer writing about black themes.
It's interesting, because B. Luther Hatchie, the first installment in this trilogy, is exactly about that. 25 words or less. Black editor receives manuscript about a 72-year-old black woman, autobiographical. She works with the woman for 2 years. They never meet. They never speak on the phone because the author is in a rest home. It wins an award. She goes looking to give the award and to solidify this relationship with this 72-year-old black author who she has come to love and be mentored by through correspondence. Down in West Virginia, knock on the door, opens the door, hello, I'm Libby Price, 38-year-old white man who has written it.
Oh, wow.
And it's a bestseller, award-winning. It has been embraced by the black community. The question is posed, if it brings that kind of authenticity to the table, and it is written by a 38-year-old white man, is it valid or is it not valid?
There's the rub. There's the question. And it's always been a problem with me. I mean, if I'm a writer, let's say I'm a Pulitzer Prize writer, and someone comes to me and suggests that I write about the Jewish Holocaust, I'm going to need some help. Yeah. I'm going to have to collaborate with somebody. And but they are writers, especially in film, strangely. To think that they can write about anything and everybody and everybody's problems. And so I have a problem with that issue.
Of course we do, because we work in that industry and we've watched the industry perpetuate myths, not the best myth. Those stereotypes that we all know about, that have been played out, are negative, not enough positive. That's getting better, but not enough. For years and years and years we were portrayed in all the stereotypes that we all know about. So of course we're up in arms about that. We want what the real world has to offer, which is all of us, and it's not exclusive to African Americans or black people. If we all take our fair share of abuse.
Right.
So we have issue with all of that and fight that. So, I mean, let's go back to Amos and Andy, which was, I always thought, really funny.
Oh, I was on the floor.
I mean, and these were wonderful physically comedic actors, but that was the only thing being portrayed on television at the time. The Huxtables weren't there, Bill Cosby wasn't there, you weren't there, and all of that was before. And if that's the only stereotype that is being offered, and no matter what anyone says, we all know the effect of media and how it shapes perception.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a clear and real thing that it puts in minds of audiences.
Oh, it's omnipresent. It's all over the place.
Yeah. And we're all affected.
I'm sorry. I want to get back to the play for a second. I want to talk about Sterling North, who represents, I think, a segment of American society that has become successful. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the character you play.
Sterling, I filled in, and I'm still filling in, even after all of this time, some blanks in Sterling's life. I read an article in Fortune 500 magazine, and I showed it to Dwayne a little while ago. It had about 6 of the pioneers of the business world that broke into, in the 50s and 60s, worked in corporate America. These were the first black men to get important positions and what they had to go through. One had been a Tuskegee Airman and was a pilot and had done 30 years in the Air Force and was a celebrated pilot, retired, went to corporate looking for something and was handed, a token. He wasn't having it. He braced the CO about it. They gave him a little more. He stayed a little while, said, I'm not having it. I think this is something I filled in for Sterling, that this is where his tenaciousness comes from. This is where the lid on his anger is always bubbling. And you remember the first beat of the play and what goes on there, and I don't want to give too much.
No, we won't give that away, but you can feel the anger that's there in this character that you play.
I think, if at some point in all of our lives as people of color, and again, this is not exclusive to us, but especially us, we walk around in a rage, a constant rage. We learn to control it, we learn to subdue it, we learn to deal with it. That doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it okay, but it's just part of the makeup in America of a black man. Mm-hmm. Because at some point, you understand what the devil is going on around here and what price we have to pay to just walk through the door. Often, we're the only one in the room, and we do an adjustment, very subtle adjustments, and we learn how to do that and play and move, and in the play it speaks to that. There's a very specific line about who studies who. Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful line that you deliver.
Sterling, and about Sterling, we were saying that earlier, it's a great character. It's one of those characters that we became actors to play. You know, those of us with any kind of social consciousness that grow into this, Dwayne and I have talked about that. I mean, if I don't jump on this with both hands and both feet, I need to go do something else.
Yeah, well, you play the role, and it's a brilliant portrayal. And I really enjoyed sitting there, and I at one point said to myself, I wish I was up there playing that role.
Right.
Those days are...
You can, no, I don't, no. You should, that's not true at all. That's not true at all.
But I thought that, now answer this for me. Is this an important play for the black community?
Absolutely, but it's more important for the white community. We know all what the play's talking about. We live it every day, every moment. It never leaves us. We might put it on automatic drive, but it's there. And our sixth sense will wake us up and alert us to any danger that is around. We just walk through the world like that. That's what happens. And the older I get, the more my sensibilities are constantly alert.
We know them, they don't know us. We know them, they don't know enough about us. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and in so many cases don't care to, because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't.
I'm sorry. It's part of what happens in the play when you say, I want to do this. Well, you have that dialogue with Paul in the play. It's a very, very revealing dialogue for the. So you feel more important for the white audience.
I think so.
We want to get black audiences in there.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, we couldn't live without those kinds of murmurs in the audience. It's a very different audience when it's, you know, there is a majority of black people, because there's those,
No.
been there, done that.
Our executive producer, when he hears things like, we know them, they don't know us, his question is, do we know us?
It's tricky. It's very tricky, you know. It's a lot of work, because there's a relaxation factor that comes along with all of this. And it's in the artistry of an actor, as Dwayne and I have talked about, as we start to learn as artists, especially as actors, because relaxation is such a huge part of finding to make our work organic, so that we can bring our best work to the table without the tensions that are actor tensions. And so if we don't relax and take a deep breath long enough to contemplate things about who we are and heritage and cell memory, kind of what's in our meat, you know, that comes along in a kind of esoteric way, that is, it's not a science, but it's there. We all feel it. Everybody knows it. But because the way the world is, they want facts. Well, the fact is, I feel it. You feel it. We all feel it. If we don't get a chance to examine that, to relax and breathe for a while, instead of constantly being on guard and having our armor up, protecting ourselves from the deluge of just everyday things that everyone deals with. Sure. White, black, Spanish, Asian, men, women, plus this ambush that comes along. Well, you know, it's very hard to take a breath. It's very hard to take a breath and say, and reflect, and start to really reflect on what's going on with me? What's really going on with me? Let me get past all of these things that I have to deal with, so that I can deal with something that is a lot more subtle, and that's a kind of subtext of life.
Mm-hmm. So now we see the need for theater.
Yes. Amen.
We see the need for theater. And speaking of theater, what is going to happen with this play after the 12th of February? Does it go back to the Greenway? Or?
No, there's no real plan. There's no real plan at all. But then again, we had no real plan at the Greenway.
Right.
Way back in April and June.
Until Michael came.
Until Michael came and said, done deal. And sometimes there's a part of me that says there's a life cycle of things. Mm-hmm. Things have a life cycle. Mm-hmm. And maybe this has had its life cycle here in Los Angeles. Maybe there'll be an extension if there's wiggle room, not a lot. The houses are good, but then again, the CTG has been just amazing about the cooperation and their resources, putting their resources into making this a success. I mean, this, and I know we're running out of time.
No, talk, please. I'd love to hear you talk.
Because as artists, we are in a perfect world. What's happened is that we've produced a play and run it for 5 weeks, 3 performances a week. We had double, or what's called alternate casting, back in April, June, because
at the Greenway.
At the Greenway,
right?
Because of the nature, so we had 2 casts. Rarely was the same cast in a given night the same cast that was the night before. Mm. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Certainly kept everybody alive.
No, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. But there are things that get missed there. There's a rhythm to the play when there's a one cast that we get into. There is the idea that we only have 3 performances a week. We're down 4 nights, so we have to kind of, we get there early, we have our line run through, and still it's the first night 4 weeks, so there's just that hair of hesitation that can make a difference in the rhythm of a play. So now we've slept on the play, so to speak. The whole cast has slept on the play. We've gone through a rehearsal process. We brought the same creative team, Dwayne Perry, the same cast, one of those casts. There's just one cast now. There are no alternates. It's 6 actors, 6 characters.
How many performances a week are you doing?
8 performances a week.
Big difference, isn't it?
Big difference.
Let me add this and ask this question. Is it the kind of play that can tour? Is it the kind of play that will work in colleges, or
absolutely,
or is it the kind of play that could be done for? I just saw it when I see plays.
You saw all of that.
Is it a television show in it? I mean, it's a movie there. Or?
I think so. I think all of that is possible, especially given some of the work that is out there. If that can be done, I don't see why this can't be done.
Oh, I think this could tour very well. And also could make one hell of a television movie.
Adaptation, yes.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hope somebody comes up and says to Tom, you interested?
Well, look, Michael came up, so it's possible. Look, but I want to thank you, my brother, because it's always wonderful, even if we meet in the street, which we actually, when you were in Burbank, we were a half a block away from each other.
It's always wonderful to talk with you, certainly at the Roundtable. I love talking to you, and you're always welcome to come back. We may have you come back if time permits. Thank you so much,
Ben Guillory. And good luck with the play. Good luck with the play. And you're brilliant as an actor in that play.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks a lot.